I remember telling them, I'm like, Dad, I'm gonna work harder than anyone else I know so that one day I can live a life that no one else can live. And what he told me, he goes, hey, I appreciate the work ethic and sentiment. He said, but the bottom line is you can never get back the experiences that you never have. You can never recall the memories that you never create. And so this is the damaging notion of play to win, is it becomes this one day, someday, where sacrifice is the mantra. In the world of religion, sacrifice means to make sacred. In any other context, sacrifice means to give up something. And a lot of times we're giving up something greater for something lesser. It's good to be here. Who was here last year when I spoke? So cool, a lot of you. I tend to yell, but it's not because I'm upset. So just you'll probably get spit on a few times, but that's all right. You were brave enough to sit up here up front. I'm writing a book right now and nearly complete with it called Win, Then Play. Win, Then Play. And it really is broken down into 4 main segments. The first segment comes down to perspective, philosophy, and mindset. And so I'm going to dial that in just a little bit. The second perspective is money. But in the money segment, win then play means making money on the buy. It means creating more cash flow. It means having economic independence so that you can swing for the fences in everything that you do, so that you've already set up the win before you've even began and really worked so hard for something that never comes about with most people when they're considering retirement. Then the third segment is scale. And I'm doing some really great case studies in this because there's a way that people can profit from their ideas up front, and we can abolish this notion of venture capital, which has been kind of a shark-infested water that gets people to give their entire life and dream to another company that squashes it if they're not the 1 in 10 that become profitable enough. And so people don't have to borrow to start a business. They don't have to borrow money in order to go out there and be productive. That's what I talk about in scale as the cycle of creation, how we move from an idea to a more formalized concept to a framework that is supported by the very end users, meaning the customers, and they actually fund it so that you don't owe any money. You've created the momentum, and it becomes a product, service, or experience, and we keep going through that cycle. Look, I pre-sold 22,000 copies of Killing Sacred Cows before it was released. We did a financial program back in 2008, and we pre-sold $150,000 before we filmed the first video, which meant we were actually putting out videos for people that were going to watch them versus hoping that we were going to create something people wanted to watch. And it created this momentum and accountability, by the way. Created accountability because we told them, hey, this is a beta version. We want your feedback. We want you to be case studies, and we'll charge you half the price that when it's done. But they were also more forgiving when we had an error on a video or something didn't load or work right? And they became part of that feedback. And so this whole notion of scale isn't the traditional over-leverage, overwork, exit some business, grow bigger than anyone else that you know while you forfeit and sacrifice every aspect of your life. It's more about scale in that you really dial in the best of who you are, and you only do those activities while you actually learn how to properly delegate and build a vision that is the most rare commodity, like I talked about last year, that gets other people to come and support you. Because in the world of scale, it's not the same as goals and objectives. Goals and objectives we already know how to achieve. Scale and vision is something beyond your reach that you actually get other people to help you build because they feel inspired by it. Like when I said I want to liberate 1 million entrepreneurs to become economically independent, I know how the hell was I going to do that? I don't know. But by actually stating it, I started getting people that said, I want to be part of that. Like I was on a phone call with one of our clients yesterday, and they're like, hey, we want to not only be one of the million, we want to bring other people with us. That's how that happens, because you're brave enough to say something you don't have the capability for, but you have the integrity and commitment to bring it about. And then the fourth segment of the book is legacy. And I look at legacy as living your legacy and the legacy that you leave, that there's 2 aspects to that. And first and foremost, when it comes to legacy, most people don't even consider that conversation, because when people are in survival, they become selfish. And in survival mode and scarcity, they're not considering legacy, they're just considering how do they make it from day to day. They're not considering how to build a life they love. They're just trying to make ends meet. And ultimately, this is where most of the population is. And I talked to these 2 people, Mike and Tori, yesterday, that, by the way, this was a fascinating story because they were wherever Hurricane Irene hit really hard. They lived there, and 10 years ago, it devastated them. They almost went bankrupt. They weren't able to help anyone out but themselves. They were so ill-prepared. And then they met us a couple years ago. They got their protection component handled, right? They started to make sure they understood what type of insurances they have, what the provisions were inside of the insurances. They actually dug a well on their property. They started to go out and, Utah's big on this. They got some food storage. If you haven't done the food storage thing, then by the time you leave here, they're probably going to teach you to have some food storage in case there's a snowstorm or something. But this hurricane, last year when the hurricane happened, it was 9 months ago, they had to close their practice for 45 days because no one could even drive to get there. But during that time, they wrote a book. They launched a rejuvenated medicine clinic that they started doing online education for. They built the website. And by the way, last month they had $112,000 from that new business in rejuvenation of medical rejuvenation, because it became about education and leverage, because this was more about, they weren't just in survival thinking about themselves. They have people living at their house right now that their home was 10 feet under, and now they're taking care of other people because they're more abundant. They didn't just think about this notion of retirement. Retirement is such a terrible notion because first and foremost, it is a selfish goal. Retirement is completely selfish, and it has very little to do with prosperity because you're putting some target out in there in the future that you say, once I hit this, I'm gonna start bankrupting my family. I'm just going to start taking for me, and I'm no longer going to be in the world of value creation. And as we look at the convergence of purpose and profit, retirement is not in that convergence, because retirement is retiring from purpose for most people. I just talked to this guy, Brad Bokey, yesterday. I'm in the middle of case studies for the book, so I have all these very fresh stories in my head, just so you know. But I was talking to Brad, and Brad's a dentist that when I first met him, he was in this little house of a dentist office. It looked pretty, I wouldn't go there. All right, maybe I'm a snob. But I was like, that place kind of sucks. Now, last time I went and saw him, he has this place called Bayside Dental. I thought I was in a lobby of a Vegas hotel. It was phenomenal. And once he had a patient that said to him, well, doc, you must be charging me a lot in order to be able to afford this. He goes, you're using a PPO, idiot. You're going to pay the exact same amount so we can go back to that crappy house, or we can have this amazing lot. And he goes, I really like this place. Right? But see, a lot of people have that kind of scarcity thinking. But Brad told me, he goes, I don't see retiring. I could see myself still doing dentistry at 80 years old. But he had to give up a lot of the things that was busy and the scarcity type things where he was scrimping and saving, and it was holding him back in order to feel that abundant. And so for him, it became about, how do I build a life that I love? And so he just bought a boat, and he bought the $60,000 boat, and it's on Dock CC in Dallas, and he's loving it. He can't wait to go and experience life. Now, is that a good financial purchase? I don't really care. What I care about is he loves his life. And what good is our money if we're not able to utilize it and benefit our life? I think that's a critical piece. So as I break this down, I'm going to spend a lot of time in the legacy component, and I'm going to just spend a little bit of time in the mindset component, and I might, filter in a few things on the scale side and the money side. But in the mindset, there's really three kind of mindsets. And one is the same, it's like the other side of a coin. The first side of the scarcity coin is playing not to lose. Most of the population is stuck in playing not to lose. Fear, doubt, and worry are their mantra. They're thinking about what they can do to preserve and protect without being intelligent about it. It's really the book, The Millionaire Next Door. And what I've learned from that book is if you want to be a miserable millionaire, you can completely do it and everybody hates you, right? And by the way, when you die, your heirs will just blow the money in 16 months because they didn't even know that you had it. So playing not to lose is all about scrimping and sacrificing and delaying and deferring and getting blisters on your fingers from pinching those pennies. And it's Ebenezer Scrooge at the ultimate version of it, right? And there's this different moral to that story. But playing not to lose, I don't feel like that's the people in this room that are stuck in playing not to lose. Playing not to lose, you wouldn't invest in a conference. You wouldn't attend something to increase your education because you would look at that as an expense rather than an investment. But where I feel most entrepreneurs get stuck is in the other side of that coin, called playing to win. Like I just spoke at MIT Endicott House at a thing called the Gathering of the Titans, and they asked 5 newbies, what are the last words you would speak on your deathbed? And the 5th guy said, I just tell people, play to win. I'm like, oh my God, I'm gonna rock this dude's world. Because play to win, I'm just gonna dismantle the hell out of it. And that's apparently was gonna be his last word. See, play to win is societal success. Play to win is where we look at the magazine and we see Elon Musk on the magazine, but then we read a different article that says he's sleeping only 2 hours a day. By the way, news is out. That's terrible for your health, right? He's so stressed out. He's got to, just smoke some weed to get a little bit of relaxation and just a temporary break. And then, he's got this wife that's now writing, that's an ex-wife, and then we hear about the story where he slept on a couch, where he was dead broke, but he made it, and we put these people on our shoulders like they're heroes. But most of them are actually a-holes because they have no life. They don't have true wealth. They may have a lot of money, but does that money translate to a quality of life for them? Are they living a life that they love? And even though they might be doing iconic things in the economy, are they creating a life that we should actually envy or model? Because what we don't see is the million stories of the people that failed following this model of playing to win. So I have some questions for you to consider in your own life. If you're in the playing to win phase, number one, is the juice worth the squeeze? Is the juice worth the squeeze? Number two, play to win at what cost? What is the cost in order to achieve that, right? And ultimately, play to win, like that's where you see people stuck in the venture capital model, or you see people stuck, where they're just, like I was this in my 20s. I remember my dad, who's a coal miner, and when you think about coal miners work pretty damn hard. I remember telling them, I'm like, Dad, I'm gonna work harder than anyone else I know so that one day I can live a life that no one else can live. And what he told me, he goes, hey, I appreciate the work ethic and sentiment. He said, but the bottom line is you can never get back the experiences that you never have. You can never recall the memories that you never create. And so this is the damaging notion of play to win, is it becomes this one day, someday, where sacrifice is the mantra. In the world of religion, sacrifice means to make sacred. In any other context, sacrifice means to give up something. And a lot of times we're giving up something greater for something lesser, hence the 401k. I mean, hell, that thing is, let's just put money in there, and then I guess 30 years from now, there's gonna be money in there that the government just invades, and you're gonna find out it wasn't what it was cracked up to be. It'll be riddled with fees, it'll underperform, and ultimately, people have taken their hard-earned money and components of their life and gifted it to that rather than having the experience along the way. See, I believe that we are our greatest assets, not a stock, not a bond, not a piece of real estate. And the real investment is the investment in ourselves, in understanding and exposing our skill sets and developing those skills and understanding the biggest vision that we're capable of. And so the best way I could say this in the convergence of purpose and profit is that the most of the population that is playing not to lose or playing to win, their entire purpose is profit. And it's a never-ending game because no matter how much money you make, someone else will always make more. No matter how much money you have, I kind of look at it like most entrepreneurs are just like broken kids that are still out here doing something to prove themselves. Like when I was in kindergarten and I didn't do what the teacher told me to do, which was memorize my home address, which was just 236 Carson, not hard to memorize. And that was the way I was gonna get this art project back. And because I didn't memorize it, she threw it away. I was like, oh shit, I'm stupid. How could I not get that, right? And so I go my whole life trying to prove to this 5-year-old self that I'm good enough. And what if I just make enough money? That's what was motivated me at first. If I make enough money, won't people see me as successful? But the problem is that's a gaping hole that no matter how much money you stuff in it is never filled. And this is the playing not to lose and the playing to win trap. This is where most people get stuck, is they're just trying to get more. And there's a disease to more, because as you add more, you'll find out, like I was in a room once at a mastermind, and someone sold their business for $80 million, and they were super depressed because as soon as they sold it, someone told them a story about a friend that had sold the business for $1 billion, and they immediately felt broke. I have a friend here in Salt Lake, his name's Jeff. Jeff had a private plane, and he landed at the Salt Lake airport, and then he looked over, and who's the big billionaire here in Utah? Huntsman. Huntsman's plane was next to him. Huntsman had a badass big plane. Jeff had a pretty cool plane, but smaller, so he went from feeling amazing on the flight to looking at the other plane being like, I'm a complete failure. This is playing to win. This is what playing to win is like, and playing to win is a liar and a thief. It lies to us by saying, I'm just gonna do this for now, but it'll be different in the future. So we tell our family, we tell our friends, not now, but later. But guess what? We just continue to have more opportunity. We continue to have more things pile onto the plate. We continue to try to earn more money. And then we eventually get there checking off all the boxes. And guess what people feel like when they've checked off the boxes? They still feel like the wounded child that's not loved enough, that didn't accomplish enough, that someone did better than them, and it's a complete destructive trap. And we're just gonna end the talk there and have you guys feel that. No, I'm just kidding. So I love the theme. I love the theme for here. It's so spot on because here's the theme. If we continually make deposits, we continue to add clarity, we continue to increase our confidence around our purpose, that if we had people that spent the same amount of time on consideration for their purpose as they did the busyness inside of their business, their life would transform, because if your purpose is greater than your bank account, you never retire. And the more compelling and clear and powerful your purpose, the more you can deal with the minutia and the shit the world is gonna throw at you, because it matters enough. Like when I read books from college and they say the only purpose of business is to make a profit, that's the wrong term. The responsibility of a business is to be profitable. The byproduct of purpose is profit. And this is why so many companies are screwed up. Like, this is just a little side note rant that I'm gonna do here because it's in my head. But I hate the stock market. I'm just gonna say, and this is why. Because I am a firm believer in value creation. That is my mantra, that is my mission, that is my purpose. I want to be a value creator. I want to continually engage in the world of value creation. And the problem is, see, value creation is actually a place where win-win or win-win-win can and has to exist. But when we look at shareholder value, when we look at the concept of shareholder value in the stock market, there's a fiduciary responsibility for CEOs to benefit the shareholders with increased stock value. Now, here's a bubbly old man that everybody thinks is a really nice guy, Warren Buffett. This dude is a ruthless vato. I mean, this dude is hardcore. Because you know what he does? He doesn't invest in the stock market. He is not a stock market investor like any of our clients are. He is a business buyer. He's buying the business through the stock market because he has enough cash to do so. And I've had family members and friends that have worked for Warren Buffett-owned companies, and this is the entire methodology. He doesn't do it, but he sends a manager to do it. And what they do is, my uncle was the vice president of Pacific Corp, bought by Berkshire, and this was his job for 365 days. He fired more people in 1 year than his previous 38 years. And what he would do is then pull in the other people and say, we're gonna double your workload with no additional raise. Would you like to keep your job? And so on the backs of the employees, shareholder value went up. Now, did quality of life go up? Did, or look at, there was a pharmaceutical company that their entire philosophy was, we're gonna find companies that have a patent on a pill. And we're gonna buy that company, we're gonna do zero research and development ever again, so we're gonna save 18% on research and development, and we're gonna raise the price of those pills 5,000%. That was amazing for shareholder value, it sucked for humanity. And if we want to know why the biggest corporations do atrociously bad things, it's because they're only considering shareholder value, and the pressures are to increase shareholder value regardless of what it does to the employees or the end users. And so that's the main reason I choose not to invest in the stock market. And I also feel like after flash trading and after we look at all this stuff that's going on with technology, we heard Tom talk a little bit about what artificial intelligence and blockchain and all this is gonna do. Here's what it's gonna do. It's gonna give some little snot-nosed kid that you would never expect to be a billionaire the opportunity to be a billionaire within a year. Before, if you want to be a billionaire, you got to pay off someone in the government, you got to have major connections in that, you've got to have like some family money or venture capital money come in, and now, you know what? Uber doesn't have a fleet of cars, Lyft doesn't have a fleet of cars, Airbnb doesn't have a fleet of hotels, yet they've completely competed and disrupted that industry. So what happens when you have a Fortune, you have an S&P 500 portfolio at one of those companies that we hate doing business with? This is all I'd ask you to do. Look at the companies in the S&P 500 and go, how many of those companies are you enjoying doing business with? Do you feel like they've got your best interest in mind, they're easy to deal with, they're customer-centered and customer service focused? Because if the answer is you don't, guess what? They're not gonna be around within 7 to 10 years. And before, they could have a stranglehold on the market for 50 years just because of the old rules. We're in a new economy, and so what I'm saying here is, as we put all of our reliance in things outside of ourselves, as we have a lack of contextualization around our philosophy, if there's any area of uncertainty in your life and you don't have a philosophy, someone here in the world will try to sell you theirs. They'll sugarcoat it, they'll tell you partial truths, and ultimately it's gonna impact your life. Because the best intentions and the hardest work with the wrong philosophy still equal bankruptcy. So that was just a little rant for a second on that. I don't know how much you guys like the stock market, but I just thought I would throw that out there. So let's look at the third mindset. We've got playing not to lose. Look, I went to a high school where we were proficient at playing not to lose. We're up at halftime 18 times. We won 3 games. Why? We played not to lose in the second half. I'm sure you've seen teams, you've seen experiences where people are addicted to playing not to lose. They move from flow to holding on so tight and worrying about everything that's going on around them to the point that they have no power. Then in the playing to win, it's just all out work, all out hustle. I mean, these are like the Gary V's of the world saying, it's all about the hustle. And I've heard him talk about working 18 hours a day. That's going to be awesome for him when he dies next year. I mean, this is just crap. And then when people ask him questions about his family, he stumbles and stutters on a guy who has an answer for everything. Like, we have to be careful what we're paying attention to. Sure, when you're in a startup mode, hustling makes some sense. But if you get addicted to that hustle, you will lose things in life that you never get back. And the question's gonna be, why don't you just look right now and say, what is it that you want for your life? Because if you're not clear about it, opportunity will always take over. Opportunity will always seduce you with the money that opportunity could make without the consideration of distraction. And this is what I found. Every single distraction I've ever had in my life was gift wrapped as an opportunity. It looked like the sexiest, awesome opportunity. Then I get in the middle of it and I'm like, oh, this impacts my health. This impacts my quality of life. And look, 2 years ago, I decided to just take 2 months off. Last year, I took a full month off, but I made more money that year than any other year. Then I made more money last year than any other year. And now, after I'm done hanging out and learning today, I'm head up to my cabin / I call it a cabin. It's maybe a lodge more than a cabin, but it does have wood logs, right? But I'm gonna go up there and we're just gonna hang out and have a good time. And like a lot of it is people in play to win don't relax, they don't rejuvenate. And when you don't relax and rejuvenate and have some level of recreation, then you start to diminish your overall productivity. Like when Mike and I had business partners that died in a plane crash, the bottom line is, I was like, I'll do whatever it takes. And for 4 months, I gained 22 pounds. I worked every single day. I was never home by the time my son was still awake. He was already asleep. And the thing is, I couldn't answer simple questions or do simple things because I was exhausted. Because I wasn't treating myself as the greatest asset. I was living my life for someone else, for something else, and I wasn't clear about my philosophy because of the grieving and the confusing emotions. I told you I yell, right? Nobody's in trouble yet. Last time someone fell asleep on me, Vince already was like, if I fall asleep, keep going. So, all right, cool. That's why I'm loud, So win then play is a completely different mindset. Win, then play. Some of you might have heard wine, then play. No, win. Win, then play. So win, then play, an example of it would be I took my kids fishing recently. And they caught fish, and I had what I like to call a long-distance release. There was a fish on the line. We never saw it. It got away. But they were like, Dad, it's got to be really sad that, we caught fish and you didn't. I'm like, it's got to be really sad that I'm rich and you're not, suckers, But what I told them, I was like, I already won. We're out on the river. Feels meditative. I'm learning new ideas here of how to fish and learning how to look at the different bugs and quasi how to tie the line. I'm not really good at that yet. But I'm spending time with my boys. We're having conversation. There's no technology. I already won. If we caught fish, that was just a bonus. Right? That's just a win then play type of mentality. It's where you're creating a journey that you want to be on and you're enjoying the journey along the way. I feel like now I'm just, in writing the book, what I've found in my life is I'm now developing hobbies. I was telling Vince, and he thinks I'm a weirdo, which is understood. I said, yeah, on Tuesday I flew to LA because I feel like this company Intelligentsia was the big leader of specialty trade coffee. And so I went and I spent with their lead barista 4 hours learning about coffee because I want to make a better cup of coffee. Because I now identify myself as a writer and writers drink caffeine. I mean, I'm gonna have a tobacco pipe next time you guys see me if I'm not careful. But it's like that. I'm developing hobbies because I don't see that as, in the past it would have been like, that's time I'm not working. That's time I'm not making money. But the reality was when I was gone for 2 months, Norm over here ran the organization and he said, okay, 2 weeks, the money was down. He said, what are we gonna do? And they invented entirely new marketing programs and systems to bring people in that would have never been created if I'm there because everyone would have relied upon what I'd always done in the past. So it actually allowed them to be more powerful, allowed them to find their own strength. It allowed them to be more productive. It allowed them to own more of a stake in the outcome of the business. And it was a great situation for me as I, slept in. And like in Italy, basically what you do is you drink some coffee, then you take a nap, and then you eat a 4-hour lunch, and then you take a nap, and then you eat a 4-hour dinner, and that's your day. And so it's very relaxing, right? But win then play mindset is revolutionary from a standpoint of just getting clear about what you want. You define your win, not society. You define what success means to you, and you live it because you hold the pen, and you're the author of your book of your life. And so in investing, it looks different, and I'll talk about it from a legacy standpoint and kind of how I think it would relate to this prosperity economics movement here. And now that Tom's gone, I'm just going to use one color. I've been through Money and You, but I'm not doing the 5-color thing. He's better at it. So if we move to legacy, I want to talk about win then play and legacy, and I want to talk about the family legacy rings. So this is something in researching and considering legacy, and especially having young kids, saying, how am I going to make sure that my kids don't turn into entitled little brats? How do I make sure that I'm not, I've just seen where I heard a billionaire speak, this guy, Bill Cummings, in Boston in April, and he's giving 100% of his money to charity. Now, I was going to grill him on why he was doing that, but he wasn't feeling well that day, so I decided not to. But I'm like, is it because you didn't prepare your kids? Is it because of the level of guilt and shame? Or is it just you're the most charitable dude in the world? I don't know. I really want to know, but I don't want to just give all my money to charity, because some charities are atrocious at managing money. And I don't just want to give my money to my kids because I want to give them opportunity, not cash that squashes opportunity. So in the research, this is what I've discovered is the family legacy rings. So the first piece of the family legacy ring is to have a family office. Having a cohesive, comprehensive, and communicating type of organization so that all your financial, situation is covered properly. Like, Vince, I first heard about a family office from you, and you actually said this to me. You go, oh yeah, this one that I'm talking to, they're low tier, like 30 million net worth. I'm from a place that I think if we all gathered our money together, we might be able to scrape up 30 million from East Carbon, Utah. But I was like, wow, that's crazy. See, the Rockefellers had an entire office of financial professionals that only worked for them, right? That only worked for that family. And the Vanderbilts didn't. So the Vanderbilts squandered a fortune greater than any that we've ever known. I actually think they should be commended for spending that much money and losing it. Like, that takes some serious effort. But the Rockefellers had a family office. So now they've got people that can help protect them, that can help perpetuate the wealth, and that can actually work from a certain philosophy in a cohesive place so that there's not cracks, there's not slippage. I mean, I remember when I had my first meeting with an accountant and my first meeting with an attorney in my early 20s, one wanted me to have an S-Corp, the other wanted me to have an LLC, and they just did whatever the hell they wanted, and I had to deal with the consequences because they didn't communicate. And if they have differing philosophies, you're going to have financial trouble, financial cracks. There's just going to be problems. So this concept of actually keeping that where it would go from generation to generation, obviously there's going to be a turnover of professionals, but the philosophy of having the professionals work cohesively is a massive advantage in generating perpetual wealth. So the second piece here is what I'll call the family retreat structure. And the family retreat structure is a game changer. I don't even know that retreat is nearly powerful enough of a word, but there's a guy by the name of Rich Christensen. He wrote a book called Toast Turned Purple. He's been the person that I've looked to and sought out to help me and my family because he's raised 5 kids, and they've all had businesses when they were teenagers. One did $890,000 of revenue when he was 16 years old. He's had them go through and hike major mountains when they were 14 years old so they could have a private victory instead of a public victory and overcome the difficulty of going up Kilimanjaro, being sick, not having enough air, but having that like, wow, I just did something and I have a different perspective. And when they were 12, like he took them to a third world country, spent an entire month with them one-on-one so he could talk to them about what it means to be a man and what the philosophies of the world are, show them what communism looks like and how terrible it is, because young people today all of a sudden think socialism is a cool, trendy thing. It's going to be awesome when we're all like broke living in socialism. That's stupid, right? I want to show my kids how stupid that idea is. I'll take them to North Vietnam next year. So anyway, this family retreat structure takes everything that's great about a business that never gets translated to a family. Great businesses have a vision. Great businesses have an articulated mission. Great businesses have values that they're crystal clear about. Great businesses have regular meetings. Great businesses have logos. They have statements, right? They have stands. That's what great businesses do. Yet when we look at families, how many families actually have a family logo? I'm geeking out on this so much that we built a shield, an actual family crest that hangs above the mantle like it's medieval times, right? But you know what's cool about that is when people come and visit, my kids can tell you what the symbols are, what they mean, because they were part of creating those symbols. And so all of a sudden, we can articulate our philosophy again and again, and we can crystallize it, and we can all build something together. So that's we have a family crest, which is our logo. We have a family mission statement. You know, we have a family creed, which is stand for something or fall for anything. We've got our family values. They're all over the walls, but we're also making sure it works and integrates into the hearts of our kids, because we do family meetings 1 to 2 times a month, where we each read these and say, what does it mean to you? And then we ask how we can support one another and what one skill they're working on between now and the next meeting. And we rate each other as parents and kids. How am I doing on a scale of 1 to 10, right? And then I tell them how they're doing on a scale of 1 to 10. And then we talk about what they could do to improve. And then we have this like entire framework that every business has integrated into our family life, because here's what I found. If you don't invest in your heirs, your wealth will deteriorate. And giving them money without investing in them is a dangerous place. And with my disdain for the stock market, my entire trust, the plan is just keep it safe. And then when we take any level of risk, we risk it on our heirs. We risk it by investing in their businesses. We earn interest. We charge them interest. They don't just get the loan no matter what. I was meeting yesterday with a guy that has done 125,000 loans over the last 15 years. So I said, what's the underwriting criteria? How do you do it? And I said, I want to create an underwriting criteria so that my board inside of my trust, when my kids or future generation wants money, they have to go through a process, because if they could just get it no matter what because they're a Gunderson, we call that the lucky sperm club, right? And that's not a good financial strategy. The Vanderbilts had that and they destroyed things. So I want to make sure that I'm raising good human beings. Right? So that's what the family retreat structure is about. It's about investing in your heirs in a structure that lives in their life versus just on a piece of paper. The next piece. I got to thank Mr. Randall there mentioning it, the family constitution. Yes, my first family constitution was 53 words. I'm sure you're not surprised. I'm a wordy individual. I now feel like one of my better accomplishments is we now have it down to 38 words. So the preamble to our actual trust is in my language and my wife's language. It's not legalese, it's not written by an attorney. And when we think about the US, they had a 4,400 word document called the Constitution. It forever changed the face of the world, because now almost every government has it, even though that was the first one. And it was designed to protect what? Life, liberty, and the pursuit of happiness, right? It wasn't there to remove freedom. It was there to protect freedom. It was there to remove anarchy or hopefully prevent socialism or communism. And ultimately, when we use it, it works really well. And so I've got this dynamic way that my trust can be governed instead of just legalese, because I don't know what it's going to be like 30 years from now or 60 years from now. But I do know I want to leave signposts. I want to leave the core values and the core philosophies and the biggest lessons, and then I actually created an appendix this last year. And the appendix is I can give them words, and that's helpful, but what I want to give them is a discovery of their own soul purpose. So they have these exercises to discover who they are in this world, what their gifts are, what their greatest abilities are. And so it's kind of the best work I've done over the last 20 years, distilled into a workbook that helps them have an understanding of how everything applies to them and personalizes it. So it's interactive. So the family constitution is missing from most estate plans. And so what people inherit is a lot of legalese that they're never going to read that's essential to navigate the court systems or navigate the intentions of the deceased. But ultimately, most people just divide, distribute, and destroy wealth because they give it at age 30, 35, and 40 to people that might not be ready to get money at that time. It might be the very worst thing. I remember being at a basketball game last year, and my attorney pointed across there. He goes, hey, do you know who this guy is? I said, no. He goes, he's an heir of this family. It's a family that everyone would know. He goes, he's the most miserable human being I've ever encountered because he has a lot of money and zero purpose. I want to make sure that my family has purpose, and if they do, I want to fuel and fund that purpose, because if we go back to 1913, my great-grandfather Biagio, he left San Giovanni, Italy, and the reason he left is because of excessive taxation from the mob and the government, and he had a small business where he literally wasn't putting enough food on the table to feed his wife who was now pregnant. So think about this. He leaves his pregnant wife to come to America, gets to Ellis Island. They change his last name because this dude doesn't speak English and he's cross-eyed to boot. So they change it from Iaquinta to Quinto because that's all they can understand. He gets on a train and goes to East Carbon, Utah. That's in nowhere, Utah, central Utah. It's a coal mining town because he wanted to become a coal miner. He gets there just in time for this major mine disaster and has to become a goat herder. Becomes a goat herder and then eventually gets hired onto the mine, and he's 7 years until he sees his wife again and his daughter, right? The reason this happens is because of just not understanding the principles of prosperity, not understanding what value creation is, not knowing what his greatest skill sets are, being within sight of corruption. And so ultimately, to get in the right environment was the one thing he felt he had control over. But what happens when someone escapes that level of difficulty is scarcity becomes the viewpoint, the mantra, and the lifestyle. My family, I had a great aunt that had $550,000 in a credit union account and applied for welfare. I think she still had the first dollar she ever earned. She put money in Folgers coffee cans and put them in the cellar, right? I would ask her, I once asked her, I said, well, don't you have money for that? She goes, we need to save our money. You never know when a glass of water is going to cost $15. I'm like, I was just at LAX this week. It is $15. It wasn't that far off, But the reality is, my family was now governed by scarcity. There's no talk about building a life you love. The most depressed I was ever in life is when I was graduating college. I had all these job offers to work for Anderson. We know where they're at now. They're done. Merrill Lynch, Strong Investments, major companies that my family thought, these are good jobs. If you go there and you work hard, they'll take care of you. And they saw that as the only stable thing to do. But I, at my core, was a renegade and I wanted to be an entrepreneur. My grandfather, the reason I adored him and he was such a hero to me is even though he was a coal miner, he had 2 side businesses. He played the accordion, which he was Italian, what do you expect? And he would go play in bands and go travel on the weekends, right? But he also was a TV repairman and he sold Zenith TVs, those big pieces of furniture. And ultimately, every time he would go, he had friends in the community, he got awards in the community, and he was beloved and loved in this community. And I loved the fact that he could go out and just create something. So when I wanted to be an entrepreneur, my grandfather was scared for me. My mom was terrified and tried to talk me out of it. Why? Because my great-grandfather faced so much pain that it was moving in for generations that you had to live to play, not to lose. It was the only way to survive. And so I don't see legacy just as whatever money I pass on tax-free to the next generation. I see it as genetic wealth and the habits we have around creating better health in our family. I see it from a philosophical framework and mindset that they go out there and choose to build a life they love, and whatever that is for them, we will fund it if it's not destructive in society or devoid of value creation. I would even probably help them if they want to work. When our first were designing our trust, my wife was like, school teacher. And I was like, if our kids work for the government, they get $0. And it was an interesting meeting we had that time. And she's like, you're kind of an a-hole. And I'm like, that's true, but you married me. And now I'm mostly a better person now. So luckily I'm still married and she's, lighting me up a little bit. But I'm really looking at there was this escaping, this tyrant to create a better life, but then they were stuck in playing not to lose. So I want a win then play mindset and building a life they love as the legacy, as the example. That's why our legacy is what we live. It's the time that we spend. It's the conversations we have. It's the experiences that we create. And if we're constantly missing out on that because we're playing to win, then we lose because we lose that relationship. We miss those opportunities. We get exhausted and don't take care of ourselves. And it's hard when you're in the busyness to think about purpose. Purpose is difficult because we're not directly being paid in that moment where busyness can be rewarded with paychecks. Purpose takes thinking. And I think people don't think enough. They just let other people do the thinking for them, or social media do the thinking for them, or they're just busy complaining about the president, or they're busy complaining about politics, or they're busy complaining about what's wrong in the world. I think that instead of being busy complaining, we just gotta, it goes back to Shawshank Redemption. He's like, you get busy living or get busy dying. And I'm like, let's get busy doing purpose. That's the work to do. Take the time, have the conversations, and pay close attention to it on a regular basis. It's not like you have purpose one day and it's forevermore that purpose. You have purpose and it evolves. It gets even more clear. I know I want to help first-generation entrepreneurs create a legacy that will last and change their family's financial future forever. So no longer are their families born into financial bondage and starting over. They never have to pay a bank another dollar of interest because they pay their family interest. And so in the center of this is the Rockefeller Method. So the Rockefeller Method means a lot of things, but I'm just going to drill it down to some of the most basic things here. First, any heir of my family and of my trust, they buy insurance, or we buy insurance on them as soon as they're old enough. So if it's 30 days, we get an insurance policy. We want to protect their insurability immediately. We like the fact that we could build cash flow, which, by the way, like, I hate IRAs and even Roths, and what I like about my insurance plan is I get to put it in pre-tax. Now, here's how. I can pay my kids $12,000 a year. And if I can come up with enough stuff for them to do, which is part of the best pleasure of my life, is to think of things I can have these kids do in a very unique way. Like Mike, remember when Mike and I were speaking to this event, and I brought my kids to the event. They handed out books. They're signing books. The one walks out on stage with me. I'm like, how much would you have to pay someone for signing books for 5 hours and being on stage to MC? I could pay them a lot more than mowing the lawn, that's for sure. And I give them a completely different perspective, right? So I put $12,000 away for each of them, and it's pre-tax because it's tax deductible because they're employed by the business, but they're not spending that money. It's going into their policy. So that's what I mean by that. All right, so Rockefeller Method. We want to just replenish the trust because I don't know what the economy is going to be in the future. I don't know what financial mistakes my kids and grandkids and great-grandkids are going to make, but what I do know is that we learn through mistakes. And I could give them as much as I possibly can to avoid some of the mistakes, but if I have them avoid all the mistakes, they become weak. They don't have the intelligence. They lose their resilience, right? So I know that there's going to be times where there's hyperinflation or crazy interest rates or artificial intelligence that changes everything. So I just want to have the maximum amount of wealth continue inside of that trust. So I want as much insurance as I can get on them to replenish the trust after they die. And I want it as stable, secure, and guaranteed as possible. So I like whole life for that. All right, so that's part of the Rockefeller Method. And just to illustrate the Rockefeller Method really quick, from an idea from the 1950s, GE engaged in non-qualified deferred compensation in the early 50s. And the reason they did is they were no longer the number one or number two in certain categories. And they said, how are we ever going to become number one or number two? And they knew it was through human capital. They would have to get the best talent and the best individuals. And if they could acquire those individuals, they could actually increase their bottom line. True investing thinking. And so what they did is they basically said, all right, we're going to give these guys a pension. But unlike the stupidity of so many companies that were running an 8.4% projection on the stock market to fund the pensions that we saw that just went bankrupt left and right, they did something different. They actually went and bought cash value insurance policies on these individuals immediately, right? So they would come work for them, they'd buy cash value insurance, cash value would grow over time, and then when they would retire, they'd use the cash value to supplement the pension. Usually it wasn't going to be enough to provide a full pension, but back in those days, people died a lot earlier, so sometimes they lucked out. But what also happened is they knew that GE would be around a lot longer than this individual that they hired to be an executive. So what would happen when that executive died? The death benefit would come back into GE, tax-free, and replenish the investment for the pension plus a rate of return. That's all I'm thinking with Rockefeller Method. Is I look at the Gunderson family as an ongoing entity, and the way that we're going to keep doing that is buy insurance and let the insurance replenish. That means that we don't have to take a lot of risk on a bunch of outside assets and be overly speculative. We'll be speculative in our heirs and invest in them and their skill sets. They'll pay interest back to our trust rather than to a bank, and they'll fail sometimes, but the insurance will replenish some of that failure so there's more in future generations. Make sense? So that's what I mean by Rockefeller Method. Now, between the family constitution and the family retreat, I've established a board of trustees. Now that sounds superficial and boring and that kind of stuff, but all I'm really looking at is, if I'm around, I plan on teaching my heirs something, right? There's certain things I want to teach them. If I'm not around, who do I know that I can look to and say, you know what, they edify things similarly or even better, that I want them around influencing my kids? So I pick 5 people, and their job is to look at the family constitution and say, hey, this is the philosophy that we're working by. Almost like the founding fathers' vision of what Congress should have been. In order to look at the Constitution, I look at the Board of Trustees going, okay, we're going to make decisions in a dynamic way. We're not just given a set of rules and we have to follow it exactly. And then the Board of Trustees will meet with the heirs, work on those lessons and teaching, and then they're the ones that would allocate certain funds and support them with business plans. And I mean, Rich, who's on my board, he sold 17 businesses. He's the one that all 5 kids had businesses when they were teenagers. That's going to be a good influence for them. Then the family retreat, the board becomes part of the family retreat. So the board's now going to get paid to meet with my heirs on a quarterly basis. While they're alive, they get paid $0. When I die, they get paid to make sure that we're transferring and translating the family constitution into the lives of future heirs. That's the Board of Trustees. Then, with the family office and family retreat, it's the 3 R's. Review, rate, and refine. I want my kids on with every financial professional in my life at least once a year. Yes, they're young, they're not going to understand all of it, but they're going to be exposed to it. I look at Andrew Howell, if anyone knows him, he's an attorney that we've used a lot. I mean, Andrew comes from a pretty wealthy family. His grandfather was Max Lewis. Max Lewis represented Frank Sinatra, the Browning family, I mean, a lot of people. And when Andrew was 11 years old, he was sitting in those estate planning meetings watching his grandfather teach these things. Now he's an estate planning attorney. He inherited a lot of money, but he continues to work and has one of the top growing firms in the West Coast. He was ranked 40 under 40 for whatever. I mean, he's got whatever accolades, but the bottom line is he wasn't relying upon that inheritance. It enhanced it instead of destroyed him. So review, rate, and refine, right? So the review is, how am I doing? The rate and the refining is, are there adjustments we need to make to the meeting? Are there things going on in your life that you're dealing with challenges? Or like this morning, my son said he was sick. I don't believe him now, so that's a challenge we're going to have to deal with because I think he just doesn't want to go to this camp that I put him in. And, you know, so it's like, well, that's going to be on the agenda for this weekend. We have a little conversation, right? And then over here, you want your family office and family constitution. I call it the implementation enhancer. You want to make sure that, like, if you all of a sudden have, you know, an update to your estate plan, do things get deeded? Do they get transferred? Do things actually make sure that they get implemented? Because I think a lot of times we get philosophically what's going on. But what I see in the family legacy rings, which is family office, family retreat, and family constitution, cemented by the Rockefeller Method, is this stack the odds in your favor and your heirs' favor and your clients' favor to pass on money for generations to come, but more than anything, pass on opportunity, create more abundance, make sure that they're investing in themselves. It's really about capturing some of the most critical things that you have, which money is just a byproduct of the more critical things you have, which is your mental capital and your relationship capital. That's what I'm trying to capture here. The mental capital with the mission statements and the logos or the family crests, right? The rules. We even have technology rules that we fill out most of the time, trying to help create better human beings. I don't know if anyone else struggles with that with kids, but geez, my kids are brilliant. My kids are actually stupid genius. You know what stupid genius is? Like stupid genius, like they can hear me. I have a 17-digit Apple password, and they can listen through the wall and be like, that's a capital G. That's an amperstamp. That's like they know the most absurd stuff, and then they can pass a video game in one day. Then I can say, hey guys, will you sweep the porch? They're like, what do you mean by sweep? Hold the broom and walk. And they're like, I don't understand. And it falls. And then I sweep the porch. They're like, good job, Dad. I'm like, stupid geniuses. They just got me again, right? They just convinced me they don't know how to do these things. But this is about stacking the odds in their favor, in your favor, in their favor. It's about creating experiences along the way. It's about identifying what is it you want your life to look like? What does it mean to build a life you love? How is it that you define success? What are your wins? How can you make sure that you're enjoying the journey and that you look at purpose not as a destination, but as the key factor to enjoy life? Not that I'll be happy when I achieve my purpose, because if you can achieve your purpose either on your own or during this lifetime, that's a goal. Purpose is bigger than that. Purpose is beyond that. I feel like purpose should at least give you a little bit of like, little scarcity, little fear. Like, how am I going to do this? But also inspiration and excitement. Just to review, win then play, 4 main segments. 1 is mindset. Playing not to lose, that's scarcity, and it gets people in fear, doubt, and worry. Playing to win, it's another side of scarcity that most people don't think is scarcity because it's overly opportunistic, it risks far too many things, and it doesn't have another consideration other than money. Money's an amazing benchmark, just make sure you have another one with it, like quality of life. The next piece is win then play. Win then play is a mindset where you're building a journey that you enjoy. You've defined win. You've created what success means to you, not society, not just working harder, not just doing more, not just having more, but actually enjoying and treating yourself as your greatest asset. In the money side, we didn't go into a lot. I covered a little bit of that last year, but then scale. In scale, it's where can you actually improve the actual industry you're in? Where can you really start to look at showing other people what you do? Where can you take and add more value to your existing people because you're surveying them, you're hearing from them, and what they tell you they're looking for, you collaborate, you partner, or you build. And so you don't have to have all the answers, but you could be the facilitator that coordinates those answers for them so that they continue to stay with you longer because you've added deeper and more value. A lot of people spend a lot of money on marketing and not nearly enough on the question, with the ultimate question 2.0, on a scale of 1 to 10, how likely are you to refer to me? When you're getting 10s, you've got a much more sustainable business. When you think about how do I keep this customer and have them become a referring machine, then you're really on this track of the win then play because you're taking someone who's already a fan and creating an avenue. And then the last piece was legacy. Family office, cohesive, financial team, the family retreat, having a structure to invest in your heirs, spend time with them, having traditions and rituals and the right logos, and then the family constitution, your own writing that is the statement of purpose or what opens up your trust without legalese, and it's your distilled philosophies and signposts you leave for generations to come, and the Rockefeller Method where you're putting, and part of Rockefeller Method is owning nothing and controlling everything, so it's a lot of your asset protection, but it's also passing on wealth for generations to come regardless of what happens in the economy or the stock market because you've got a level of guarantee and predictability with the type of insurance you choose to replenish that. So thanks for your time today. I'll be around for the rest of the day hanging out. Look forward to talking with you.
Want to master your money? Want to figure out the things that you could do to improve your finances? Click here and check out more videos like this on Money Matters.